All right, let me call the Inland Wetlands Commission of New Canaan meeting of October 21st to order. Will the secretary take the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Stepanek?
Here.
Ms. Jameson, present. Ms. Brunali, absent. Ms. Sanford, absent. Ms. Voigtke, here. And Mr. Redden?
Here.
Ms. Owsley? Here. Mr. Ramirez, absent.
Absent. Are you finished? Yeah.
Yes.
Katie Osley, would you take the place? Will you substitute for Beth Bernelli, please?
Yes.
Yep, thank you. You'll have a copy of tonight's agenda. If you had a chance to review it, any changes, deletions, or if not, can I hear a motion to approve?
I move approval. Angela Jameson.
Second.
And Sandy seconds it. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Carried. Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of September 16th, 2024. We don't have a copy of that. Any deletions, corrections? If not, can I hear a motion? I'll motion to approve. Need a second?
Second.
Second, Sandy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Site visit minutes of October 9th. I'm going to abstain, but because I wasn't there. This is Dan Stepanek. Can I hear a motion? I mean, any deletions or changes, or if not, can I hear a motion?
I move approval. Angela Jameson.
All right. A second? Katie, seconding. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's open the regular meeting. Applications to be received and if complete will be scheduled for the November 18th, 2024 meeting. The application is IW 2437, 17 Turtleback Lane West. And the other application is application number IW 2438, 105 Kimberly Place. And we'll hear both of those at our November 18th, 16th meeting. No, it's 16th or 18th meeting. Now we want to schedule a site visit. For that, we have down here November 6th, which is a Wednesday. Is there anyone that can't make November 6th? What?
I probably cannot.
Cannot.
Not sure, probably not.
Okay.
I won't be able to, but then I can't meet the November meeting.
You're not going to make that.
Yeah.
Katie?
I can make
Sandy? I can do it.
Okay, I have 3, and I'll check with the others. So for now, we'll stick with November 6th, and I'll get back to you once I know from the others.
Okay, thank you. Oh, let's see here. So, well, now we'll open the regular meeting. Application number IW 2434, 55 Running Brook Lane, Peter J. Toll. Construct building addition. Disturbances include necessary grading and utility installation, including stormwater and management system. Establish construction entrances and access roads, fine grade and seed disturbed areas. Agent Brian Carey. And Mr. Carey is on Zoom.
Good evening. I'm Brian Carey, representing the Toll family. I'm with Land Tech, site survey engineers and soil scientists and professional wetland scientists in Westport, Connecticut. So we submitted an application back in late August, early September for 55 Running Brook Lane to construct a building addition, residential addition on the existing building, a patio, and for stormwater improvements on the property, which is 2.5 acres in total. There is a pretty large wetland area that exists on the property. Land Tech Anthony Zembo, who's our certified soil scientist in the office, did flag the wetlands back about 6 months ago. Prior to our submission for the inland wetland application, we have received approval from the health department for the B100A, which is required since we will be constructing this addition, causing a different coverage. We have captured and provided a stormwater management plan that is compliant with the town of New Canaan's engineering requirements and the 2024 state of Connecticut stormwater management requirements. We have met with Kathleen Holland to discuss the project. I know there was a site walk, I believe it was last week or the week before. The commission went out to the property to review everything in the field, just to orientate yourself a little bit for people who are at the site meeting. North is up on the map. Running Brook Lane is to the east. There is actually a little bit of a drainage swale.
Brian, sorry, Kathleen Holland for the record.
Oh, sorry, I need to share my thing.
Yeah, share your screen. We like looking at you, but you could, there you go.
There we go. Sorry about that. So again, the property site is orientated. North is going up on the plan. The addition is proposed to be on the northern part of the property. There is an existing pool and flagstone patio, garage. The site is serviced with a septic system and municipal water. There is a little drainage swale that basically takes water off of the road through the from the town storm system and basically discharges it onto the property. We understand that this is relatively close. We did look at several feasible and prudent alternatives that we can submit. We're working on those with the architect right now in concert with the homeowner to get their feedback. I know after talking with the director of the department, there is some concern about the proximity of this addition right up next to the wetland. We do think that, well, we're in our professional opinion, we would be able to construct this without really causing much harm to the wetland. We are going to come back. We know that there's additional information that has been requested by the staff that we are going to submit. One of the problems with basically taking the residential addition and making it exactly parallel with the house is there are windows on this part of the property, which the homeowner would like to try to preserve as best as possible. So we are looking at some alternative layouts. We will come back with a moderate planting plan. We know that there is some edge of lawn here. We did talk about that with staff. Other than that, I mean, there's really, the disturbance is very limited to this one part of the property. The detention system is basically six Coltech units, 100 HD galleries, which are pretty small. This isn't a huge system. We did submit the stormwater report into the record. We haven't gotten comments back from the engineering department. Again, this is the B100 area back here. This will not be constructed at this phase, only if the septic system were to fail. Would this be constructed, and we would have to set a full design for that. We do have erosion control, sediment controls in the area of the foundation, and then in the front yard, double row silt fence. We do have a construction entrance pad here to basically keep any of the soils on the property, so we're not dragging them out into the road. We did put together a erosion and sediment control plan notes that are on the plan. Again, we are going to update this to include a small buffer planting plan in this area. With me tonight too is the architect on the project, Jason Lind. He represents the tolls. We've been working hand in hand with him for the past probably 6 months to pull this application together. So I know he was going to talk a little bit about his process and then trying to work with the resident to come up with this with what you see is our preferred alternative. Understanding that, you know, we can and will come back with different alternatives for the commission review. We talked to Kathleen last week. She was very helpful to get on the phone with us prior to the meeting to kind of relay some of the concerns that the commission had after the site walk. So we're aware of those. Mrs. Holland also said that she was going to provide us with more direct comments in the staff report following this meeting. So we look forward to answering those questions and bringing this back to you in a manner that we think, well, we know will be approvable from the commission and addressing all your complaints. Jason was going to talk a little bit, and I'm here to answer any questions. So I appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian. My name is Jason Lindy, AIA. My firm is called Sentient Design Works. We're based in Dobbs Ferry, New York. So we've been working with the tolls for an extended amount of time, trying to find the best configuration and fit for this addition. It did grow a little bit since their initial request, but there are some challenges with trying to get this to kind of best serve them, which includes replacing the access to the basement, but also giving them a footprint that's usable and isn't getting too narrow. The footprint, you know, looks quite big. It is just a one-story conservatory inspired kind of rec room and pool room. I did speak to a local GC, Salvatore Zarello, who might actually be the GC for this project, about the reality of building a frost wall footing this close to the wetland line and trying to understand what amount of disturbance would happen. You know, the good thing is that we've got these 2 flags that are in this zone, and we've got some sections that we could send that show, you know, how close the overcut really gets to this. The reality is that we can get the concrete work done without touching the wetlands. They would be very tight up against it, you know, amount of inches. The reality is the siding and the framing, you know, just putting ladders down. So it might be fine to just put plywood down for ladders to bear on. I leave it up to the board to determine whether that is a comfortable scenario or not. But we're certainly happy to receive your comments and do the best we can to figure out the best resolution.
Okay.
Sorry, for the record, this is Angela Jameson. I now have the mic on. So Brian and Jason, thank you for being here tonight and for your presentation. Could you just talk to the foundations for the addition as currently proposed, whether those will extend further out from the exterior wall of the addition itself, and how far into the wetlands you would have to go in order to work on those foundations?
For the footings.
What?
The footings are larger than the foundation.
Yeah, let me share my screen.
You're all set, Jason.
Oh, is it sharing?
No, but you can. I'm not sharing it.
Okay.
So what's the issue?
So this is a quick cross section of the structure. It's just a, you know, 1-story cathedral space structure. The footing scenario, the footings have not been fully engineered, but this is a standard footing which has an 8-inch projection from the foundation wall. It would not be stepped down to the full height basement until much further away from the wetlands. So here we have a 42-inch frost depth minimum footing line, and the closest flag is 2'10" between the face of footing and the wetland line. And then this is a diagram of potentially temporary shoring to make the small excavation to cast the footing and the frost wall with the stem and then backfill. So this is fairly feasible in terms of the site plan. This is where these markers are: 2'10"1/4, 2'11" 1/4. We're super tight here. If we could easily shave this down, we would. I can probably get them to take a foot off, maybe two. Two starts getting very narrow. So we don't want to do it unless we really have to. So open to the dialogue of that, and appreciate your feedback on that. But in terms of the construction, you can kind of imagine this part's almost the easy part. Once we are working with framing and siding and roofing, there will be ladders here. So the ladders will be, mounted from a safety standpoint further back. But again, we could put plywood to prevent compression. The silt fence would be here. The ladders have to go over that. If they need to drive equipment around, we can figure that out, but that would require most likely 6 feet of space. So probably double this. So one scenario is, if we're going to revegetate part of this anyways, perhaps that this could undergo some amount of restoration, knowing that we'll have maybe the silt fence pulled back a bit, or whatever works for everyone. So hopefully that's a effective diagram to understand what amount of disturbance we would be anticipating.
Well, thank you for that clarification, but it seems hard to envisage a situation where the workers who are actually doing this construction won't need to go significantly into the wetlands on a recurrent basis in order to complete the job, and also bring construction equipment into that area.
Here,
Yeah, so I mean, it's very close to that wetlands line.
Yep, absolutely. I believe that they would be probably driving a skid steer, so there would probably be about 3 feet of encroachment from traction standpoint.
And you said 6 feet for equipment.
That's what the feedback from the general contractor included. He felt like the
Right.
farthest projection was really just aluminum ladders, which obviously has little weight, but for the actual skid steer and cherry pickers, things that have weight,
Yeah.
they need about 6 feet of clearance.
So that's quite significant incursion into the wetlands in order to use that equipment.
Correct, on the temporary basis for sure.
Yeah, that would be a short-term impact, and we will look at ways to mitigate that. There's a lot of, because we're not projecting on filling or grading in that area. So there are temporary measures that we can put in place. And a lot of them are programmatic, not having them run the skid steer through there. The biggest thing would probably be an aerial lift and trying to do the siting. But we'll look at that and come up with a scope of work that would really limit any work within the wetland area. And in addition, the goal would be after the project is to come back and do plantings in that area, because currently, as you saw, it was being maintained as lawn. So we'd want to keep some type of vegetative buffer. I mean, it's in the wetland now. One thing to bring up though is we did look at, again, when we did look at feasible and prudent alternatives, the problem is there's just a lot of existing infrastructure in the ground, especially in the backyard. The location of the septic, it does really preclude a lot of area where this could go. There's already an existing pool. So we did try to fit it where it made the most sense. Just because the site, it's bumping up against coverage numbers. There is no, I know this isn't a wetland thing, but there is no issue with any of the zoning setbacks. We'll come back with something that alleviates the concerns of the commission.
It'll come back.
They're gonna be designed.
Sorry, unless somebody else. Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. This is Katie Owsley for the record. I'm just wondering, I know it's only one story, but I wonder how it's going to affect the quality of that wetland. Once the building is right up against it and it's limiting its sun. I mean, what's the, and I don't think you have a landscape architect on the phone, but on the call, I'm wondering, yeah, how on a more permanent basis it's going to affect the quality of that wetland.
So the wetland, we didn't do a full functional analysis, functions and values analysis of the wetland, but the area of the wetland right adjacent to the property, right adjacent to the proposed residence, is really just functioning as a lawn right now. You know, once you get further down gradient, there are more values and functions associated with the wetland, but adjacent to the building itself, there really are no critical functions or values of that wetland other than most likely groundwater recharge, which we don't plan on interrupting, since we will basically be taking all of the water from the roof and recharging it back into the ground. But I can provide a more detailed summary of potential impacts and how they will be mitigated as part of the construction process and as part of the project.
Yeah, I was gonna also add, like, one of our initial thoughts when we were brought into the project was it looked like they had crept the manicured lawn further and further over. So, you know, in a trade to add some square footage of the building, you know, we would certainly be inclined to restore, you know, the natural native vegetation of the wetland area. So the hopeful outcome is that, you know, this condition is actually somewhat improved, and you know, with Brian's expertise, we leave no impact to the wetlands as our goal.
Anybody else? Yes, yeah.
Angela Jameson for the record. So we hear you loud and clear about the amount of infrastructure that is already in on the lot, which makes it difficult to find a suitable pad for this addition. But could you just outline where else on the property you had thought of siting this this addition?
Brian, can you pull that site plan back up?
Sure.
You know, so on the left side, we've got a pretty large leaching field for the septic, and then the expansion area. So that's pretty isolated. And then the wetlands line does come pretty close to the pool as that trails towards the backyard. So the opportunity to do something different would have had to been quite detached on the far side of the pool as maybe just a pool house function, which they were not really interested in. So we were pretty pinned to this zone on this far right side. So, you know, our hope was that this would be able to fit, make the client happy, make the Wetlands Commission comfortable, and we would be able to engineer, you know, a shallow crawl space without having any major overcuts, and be able to collect the rainwater from the roof and put that into the Caltech system. So, you know, if there was an alternate spot that was ideal, we would be nowhere near the wetlands. But unfortunately, where this house was built, it was kind of smack against the setback on the far left side.
Thank you.
Cassie, do you have anything?
Brian, Kathleen Holland for the record. I do want to just let you know, Maria Coplet, our town engineer, did review the plans, and in the OpenGov online system, she did sign off on the project from a drainage point of view. So they cleared that hurdle with drainage. In addition, Brian also mentioned the health department, the director of health reviewed the proposal and also signed off on the project from, again, health point of view. And so I just wanted to mention that. at this point, I don't have anything to add. I think it's important tonight for the consultants to hear from each of you regarding this proposal. If there's something that is calling your attention to, that would be something that you would like to see improved or reduced or amended, we should probably try to address it tonight or raise it tonight. I think both Brian and Jason were helpful in the Zoom meeting we had last week, just kind of giving them some feedback from the site visit and the uncomfortableness of the commission with the project in such close proximity to the field located wetlands. I think Brian mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that a soil scientist from the engineering firm did recently flag this wetlands. And even though the lawn is crept in certain areas, it's still functioning as a wetlands, has been recently identified by the soil scientist. I think you said Anthony Zemba
Yes, correct.
did the review. So I think they're listening to some of the feedback. I know they are. I can hear they are listening to the commission's guidance and feedback. And I'll be curious to see what they can come up with as far as a balance to strike the, not having an intrusion into the wetlands or having a temporary impact that then gets restored. And then also the, the flow and function of the house and the family's use.
Yeah, this is Dan Stepani. You mentioned coming back and expand on that. Are you saying you're going to come back with other alternatives or options? And how many coming backs did I hear here? I mean, are you going to expect you're going to give us more options, and then we have to decide on what the options are and decide these options? And when will you come back? Will you come back in November? Is that
That would be our goal. I mean, basically what our trajectory would be to listen to your comments. Again, this is something that's been vetted out with the homeowner, with the resident, and then we designed around their requirements. So we'll have to go back to them and explain to them what the issues that have been put forward by the commission, and how we can basically look to adjust what they're requesting and what you're requesting. So we have for all intents and purposes, we have a compliant project with basically with all levels of the land use approval process other than the wetlands. So we understand that. I mean, I am a wetland scientist. This is what I do. For us to go back to the drawing board and move some of the drainage and do an updated grading plan isn't a huge lift. The issue is more for the architect to, come back and design something that is basically, as I stated, really is shutting off the windows, or we have to look at some of this from an architectural standpoint, the site civil design, and putting together some mitigation alternatives. That's not a problem for me to do very quickly, less than a week's time. It's really giving Jason, the architect on the project, a little bit of time for him to, meet with the clients and explain to them your feelings on the proximity to the wetlands.
And just to expand that, Brian, I feel like I can probably shave, 1.5 feet off the outside edge and still kind of maintain, an aesthetic proportion that feels good, that enhances the house, that works with their program. And then I can probably shave off another 18 inches on the other side. Starts making that window area a little dark and awkward. But, if these are adjustments that will give us another 3 feet on the other side, and now we can drive, right parallel to the silt fence. I mean, if I think that that will work, and the commission feels like this is, good steps in the right direction, it avoids us from kind of a wholesale change. We designed only as far as we needed to put this deck together. So the final engineering is not complete, but the pre-engineering is there so that we know what the general configuration and footing size and all that is. So if we're not talking about trying to stick this in the far backyard, but trying to shave, you know, a couple of feet here and a couple of feet here to give ourselves some healthy breathing room, then I think that very much could work if that's the spirit of what you guys are looking for.
Yeah, our job is to actually to protect the wetlands. So
Yeah.
keep that in the back of your mind. Any way you can add to that protection will make us happy.
Yeah, so generally, I'll put together a mitigation report, talking about ways to basically enhance or protect the existing wetlands that are adjacent to the proposed building. The one good thing about this at this point, the applicant is probably not looking to go to construction until the, early spring, late winter. So, we have a little bit of time as far as the permitting process goes. Our next step, if the commission were to approve this, is just to really just go file for a zoning permit. And again, Jason needs to finish his final architectural plans, but so we're from the standpoint of getting this approved, in the timeframes that we're looking at, that's not an issue. So if we need to take a little bit of extra time to make sure that we are meeting, the requirements of the commission, and doing what we need to do to satisfy you, that's not an issue.
Okay, good. Does any other commission have to look at this? Planning and zoning don't have to look at this, do they?
No, should they get satisfied with in the wetlands that this is a straightforward building permit application? So it would just go through. Brian, I think you mentioned their coverage is okay on the
Yeah.
survey. Yeah. So
Yeah, so when I
There's no
said,
exceptions.
I believe I said earlier that this is a zoning compliant project.
Yeah.
There's no need for any variances, and it's just an as of right type of zoning permit.
So what I would suggest doing, I don't know if anyone else has any other questions, is okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Katie Owsley again. I'm just wondering, Kathleen, are there, because the construction and, even if this is to be pulled back a few feet, because the construction was so close to the actual wetlands, are there other mitigations? I mean, the silt fence isn't very high. I'm thinking of like roof shingles and so on that might then traverse that into, what are the other mitigation options that can help mitigate against that particular?
A lot
I
of
would-
times we'll use a construction fence. The other thing we'll do, and again, this would be a last case scenario. I think there's a way for us to mitigate this before even recommending it, but a lot of times we put down a filter fabric, and then a geotextile, and then a crushed stone, and wrap it. So if there were to be any need to go into the wetland, it's basically not impacting the soils. You're putting something down. It's that can be pulled up very easily. And again, the last part of this would be to take off the layer of sod and replant this with a wetland mix and a shrub and an herbaceous layer directly adjacent to well, it's actually in the wetland in this case, but we would reestablish that lawn and area into a wetland, most likely into a wet meadow type of scenario. I do have to go back out there real quickly and look at it just to get an idea of what kind of plants we would be looking at. But obviously they'd be all obligate native wetland type plants that would do really well in that wetland area. Sometimes you have wetlands that are periodically wet or routinely wet, and the determination of what plants can go in there is very important. So that's something I'd want to make sure that we really look at carefully before we put together a planting plan. But again, any of those things can be done relatively quickly, so we'd be able to meet the deadline of submission for the next meeting.
I think also, just want to make two quick points. There's almost no demolition here, extremely limited. So we're not looking at tearing things down that have asphalt debris and fiberglass, all kinds of contaminants that would go into the wetland. And in addition to that, we've not proposed, any PVC siding, these things that, carpenters will cut on the site and will blow in the wind and fill sensitive areas with vinyl, asphalt. We're going to have a metal roof on this. But we could certainly propose, a designated area for any kind of cutting of material, that would not be close enough to the wetlands so that some of the material will be going into there. Happy to look at anything that we can do. We're very sensitive to these types of projects.
I think those are good suggestions, and Commissioner Owsley, I think, was more specifically talking about during construction, things that, inadvertently blow over into the wetlands. So I think in Brian's mitigation report or instructions to the contractor, eventual contractor, things like what Jason's talking about should be spelled out on the plan,
So generally, we'd break these things into, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, we break them into what would be determined to be short-term impacts and long-term impacts. While I can, really my opinion that we'd be able to mitigate both. Long-term, there should be no impacts based on some of the mitigation that we were planning. But even in the short term, like I said, I do think there are things that can be put in place during the construction period to really minimize any impacts to the wetland on the short term. Again, though, I will say, that a lot of that requires a lot of buy-in from the contractor and understanding. So, the need for a site monitor or some type of, analyst to be out there periodically making sure that the site contractor is doing what he needs to do and being protective of wetlands it isn't a problem. I know that's a standard condition in most of your permits. So, as long as those tools are in place, it generally provides for a better outcome for the short-term impacts.
Yeah, I agree, Brian. Jason, on a project such as this, what start to finish, what's your time frame in the best case scenario?
I mean, we have a lot of construction projects, and honestly, I feel like very few are finished faster than 8 months. Some longer that are more complex, but I think the benefit here is, this is a very simple and isolated structure. It's not intermingling with building systems. It's somewhat or almost entirely symmetrical. So I think this is a kind of good candidate to go quite smoothly and quickly. We've sent drawings out for pricing to a few contractors, but only to very qualified high-end builders. So, our hope is that we get the good expertise from a GC that can build this efficiently and is going to follow these guidelines. And, if we have these site inspections, I think that will keep them super honest. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, there's also not a ton of site work, excavation that needs to be done. I mean, the installation of that system is probably a day and a half. The foundation, excavation, and pouring, you're probably looking at 2 weeks between excavation and stripping the forms and laying the forms and everything.
I would say slightly longer. I did speak with the GC, and they would be approaching the sensitive area by the wetlands close line by hand. So they would finish dig and finish backfill that zone by hand. So I would maybe add an extra week. But I think it's a better approach because there's, no large excavators trampling that area and overcutting.
Yeah, this is Dan Stepanek again. Just so I understand, or we understand, that when you come back in November, we're not to look at this as a final. There could be other things we look at and we're not happy with what you do, and then we can maybe take it to a final in December or something. Is that possible?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we want you guys to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
We also are just trying to make sure the building doesn't get so narrow that it's not a viable space. So let me go back with Brian and we'll see if we can squeeze it a little closer to the house and squeeze it a little bit more narrow, and try to give you
Okay.
another 3 feet. And then with Brian's mitigation plan, we'll figure out if it was only 3 more feet, what would the impact, the best projected impact of that wetland be? And what are we proposing that we're going to do to restore the wetland condition and native vegetation there is because of a nice trade-off. So no, I think obviously if you have more comments, it is what it is.
All right, good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, this is Sandy Redden for the record. I think a good presentation. I appreciate your time and your being cautious. You traded amongst yourselves by saying, you give us 3 feet. So I think that's probably a really good idea. Foundations are always larger, those holes, than the foundations. And then with the lawn creep, however that's happened and whenever that's happened, reestablishing the wetlands, that's really, really good. So I appreciate you guys bringing that forward. But I'm looking forward to the alternative plans. And I think at the end of the day, if you're reestablishing the wetland, that's a very good way to go.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Katie, Priscilla? You okay?
Yeah, Angela Jameson for the record. I'm sure you got the gist of this from my questions and comments earlier, but I'd just like to say again, I think that the building is too close to the wetlands. Certainly appreciate the idea of an additional 3 feet, but I think that there will still need to be discussion about whether that is sufficiently far away from the wetland flags. Will still be a lot closer than many of the building projects that we have approved. And, we've had building projects which were similarly very close to the wetland flags. And, we haven't provided permits in those situations. So appreciate that you're going to look at this again, but I think there will still need to be a lot of discussion in November.
Understood. And we had also shared a plan that showed the 4 different distances from the 2 corners and then the 2 closest flags. So again, like the wetlands line does kind of creep in, it arches in and then pulls back away. So, I think if this wetland line was parallel to the building, we wouldn't have proposed this at all because it would be generally, holistically too close. So, so we'll include that plan, with our update, so you guys can see sort of the average distance. But you definitely appreciate your concerns and comments.
Any other comments? Any questions?
Yes.
Oh, Kathleen?
Just for planning purposes, looking forward at the calendar, tonight's the 21st, then we've got 1, 2, 3 weeks before the November 18th meeting. So in the event that logistics don't come together on your end, because you do have a considerable, decent amount of coordinating to do on your end, and Jason in particular, as Brian pointed out, scout the bigger portion of this at the moment. You can continue to the December, just communicate with me kind of where things stand. For the commission's review, at the drop dead date for them to be able to have any revisions. Excuse me, hold on, I just have to admit somebody to the meeting. Okay, would be, I would say November 11th, which would give you a week before the meeting to then review any new documentations or reports that come in from them. So just kind of keep that in mind, and we can continue to discuss it as you guys move forward. But I just wanted to lay that out. And then the December meeting, I believe, is December 16th.
Okay, a couple of weeks might be fine, but I'll discuss with Brian.
Okay, thank you.
So we will carry over application number IW 2434 until November. Okay, is everybody? All right, we'll see you in November.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All righty. Now, going forward, application number 2433, 342 Indian Rock Road. Applicant is requesting permission to maintain activities completed in and near regulated wetlands. Activities reported to include tree removal of dead beech, repair of erosion in yard, top dressing small areas to repair damage from broken sump pump pipe, filling and grading to improve runoff in yard. And Mr. Walker, you're not the agent, you're the owner, is that right? You are the agent, okay, all right. So just to kind of give you a summary of what we're doing here, we originally thought that you would have a consultant for this meeting, and you requested to move it to November, from what I understand. But I understand that you're now working on getting a consultant. Is that right?
Yeah, no, when I got this,
Mr. Walker, can you press the button there to get that to go green? And you can just leave it
Oh,
on.
there we go.
That'll pick
Great.
you up now. Great, thank you.
yeah, so when we got the information back from Kathleen that you guys had taken a look at, we tried to get a consultant, but it was right before the long weekend. And I made probably a dozen phone calls from Fairfield to New York, even down to Westport, to the folks who were just down there to try to get somebody before this, and we couldn't come up with anybody that was available. I did talk to our soil scientist who did the work, because somebody suggested that she could take care of what you guys needed for questions. And I talked to her over the weekend, but she said she'd rather do the soil scientist part and not the other part, and really should get some kind of a landscape architect or what have you. So the first call back I got was Monday or Friday evening, and with Mr. Simpson here in town. So he said the first he could get out and visit would be this Wednesday. So we'll check back with him again and make sure that that's still on. At least that was the plan. He's been out before to take a look at some other things that we were considering. There was a much bigger in scope. So we'll have.
Do you have him as a tentative right now, consultant? Is that what I understand?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, he said he could come out Wednesday and go over everything again. And I sent him the application.
Okay.
So he has all that.
Okay.
And was going to take a look at it, and said we talk tomorrow.
Talk tomorrow? Oh, good, good. Because you do have a deadline, I understand, on Halloween to come up with a consultant, so.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't trick.
I'm sorry to make it Halloween. It's no trick or treat, so.
That's all right. But yeah, so we'll have him in and get it.
You're pretty confident that Keith is the person you want? All right.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I mean,
all right, good.
I mean, I understand what we've done, the stuff that was done, and how it was done. We weren't looking to hurt any wetlands or anything like that. And, I was very aware of kind of where the wetlands was. I didn't realize the floodplain, the 100-year floodplain was so close to the house. That's something we did not know. We kind of didn't consider that because the home doesn't require flood insurance. And we kind of thought where the fill was when the house or that addition was built was probably where the flood 100-year floodplain was. So we kept everything out of where the wetlands was obvious, but it turns out we were in the floodplain, which counts as the wetlands.
Right, right, right.
And we weren't really trying to take anything away, just trying to improve and clean up what was, existing.
Well, Keith Simpson is well-known in the community.
Yeah.
And he's very good at what he does. So congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess he came out one other time. We talked about like a project that's a little bigger in scope that would definitely require, that's why I had him out originally, to have us come back here. And I didn't want to kind of wrap it all up into one, because that would just been too complicated and too lengthy, and it's
But
probably
what
more
we're
of a
doing
factor.
tonight is just, I'm going to ask you some questions, and you probably have answered most of the questions to us or people on the commission. And hopefully, and then we can then give you some ideas. And then this is going to be recorded tonight.
Yep.
And then will be given to Keith. And then he'll work with you on this, okay? So and it's kind of informal as I see it. I thought maybe you might want to start getting into the concept of how this got started. Your concept of what you tried to do, and when you started it. That might help me, certainly.
Okay. Let's see if that's popping up. Is that popping up? No. So I guess it started in the spring. I'm guessing probably March or April. I'm trying to think. Yeah. And the first thing that happened, actually, the trees we weren't looking. I didn't take those down. The property is pretty much 100% beech trees, which are dying literally each month. We pretty much lose, every time there's a big storm, we'll lose another tree. There's a couple of tulip trees also that have all kinds of problems as well. We've had save a tree out, as well as another tree person. I don't recall the name of who that was. He's done stuff on the street. But the two trees that came out, one branch had come down, a big branch in a windstorm, and actually hit my car. And another one almost took out the power lines because they're right along the driveway. So when we had somebody come out and take a look at the trees, we kind of flagged pretty much, I'd say probably 60% of the trees on the property that have issues. We didn't really want to take down all the trees. We like having the trees. And we're actually trying to have a couple of the bigger ones are being sprayed and treated for this beech tree disease. Whether or not it's really doing anything, I don't know. They did some pruning to try to keep branches from falling down, the ones that are the weaker, and we'll see how it goes. And as time goes on, we know that other ones are going to either fall on their own or need to be taken down. So we're trying to preserve them as long as we can. So when we started out, we had there's a, I don't know, how do I get this thing to pop up here? There's a brook that runs behind the house. And why is that showing and not what's coming up here?
You'd be able to double click on whatever image you're trying to bring up.
Yeah. It's just, see if you got it's up on mine, but it's not up on yours, which is odd. Here, let me do this.
I'm certain everyone here, minus Priscilla, has actually been to the site. I'm not sure about Priscilla, so I think.
Looking at my map.
Oh, okay, great. Oh, and Katie's got it open on her computer, so Priscilla can take a look
Yeah,
at
there's
that.
one that you can see it there, but it's just not popping up.
So is it something that you presented in the application that you wanted
Yeah,
to
but
look at?
this one particular, you can see that one. but it's not opening up.
So is it a photo or is it a
It-
plan?
When I scanned it in the application, it did not pick up the color in the PDF for some reason. It scanned as, it looks very blurry. You really can't make it out. It's not coming up bigger, but
I think we're gonna get into the finer details next month with the consultant.
Yeah.
yeah, we can have them show you that. So anyhow, we started this thing. But what started most of it was on the right side of the house, as you're looking at the front of the house, there's a sump pump that's in the old existing house. It was just a cape. And they did a big expansion, I guess, of the 90s, we think, somewhere around there, where they added on to the right side of the house and the back. And it's just a crawl space on all the new construction, which is near the 5 Mile River side of the house. And there's a sump pump in the old existing part of the house, which is a very small basement that runs all the time, every day. Just depends on how rainy it is. Sometimes it's running goes off every 5 minutes. Other times it's, maybe every 10 minutes. And where it exits the house, there was a pipe that ran down towards the wetlands and emptied out down there. Over time, with the lawnmowers and going across the property, and the house had been rented for 2 or 3 years, I think, before it was purchased by Jennifer. And they weren't really maintaining it so well. So the pipe had broken. It was underground. It wasn't very far underground. It was only maybe 4 to 6 inches. It wasn't below frost line or anything like that, but it had broken off probably 5 feet from the house. So it came out of the house, went down, and then underground, and that pipe had cracked and broken and was actually, at that point, had completely washed away or been removed. So there was a big gully that was being dug by the runoff from this pump that was going constantly, and then dumping in, running down into the wetlands. So one of the lawnmower guys actually flipped his lawnmower trying to get over the gully. So it's a little bit hazardous. They weren't too happy about that. So I attached the pipe, it's a 4-inch pipe to the end that was broken, cleaned it up, attached it, laid it right back in the same place in the gully, and just covered it over and flattened it out. And that was probably the largest area of soil that we put down. That was in the floodplain, outside of the flag markers. Like I said, we didn't realize it was in the floodplain, but leaving it as it was just getting worse and worse and worse. It was a big pile of sand actually down in the affected wetlands at that point. So we cleaned that up. And then also along there, there was, which is not in the floodplain or in the wetlands, there was some just roots that had, exposed themselves from the lawnmowers going over it all the time. And we just kind of smoothed that off and, top dressed it maybe 2 inches or something. We just basically put it down and scraped it back with the machine. It's just a mid-sized machine. It's not a full-size backhoe or anything like that. It's considered a yard machine. And then on the other side of the house, there were some areas where the tree came out that had hollowed where the roots were, and we just kind of leveled those out and smoothed it out, and then reseeded everything. Everything was always existing grass. It wasn't the healthiest grass, so we just kind of cleaned it up and made it look nicer. I know when we started it, our neighbors were doing some work over there. Actually, a tree had fallen, and the town came down to remove the tree because it was on town property. And they saw my machine parked there, and notified you guys, and that's kind of when it all started. So, and it was pretty rainy in the spring, so I hadn't really done a whole lot of work.
So were you just about finished with what you planned to do at that point?
I was basically pretty much done. I was just waiting for the rain to stop and, get some seed down, but I was pretty much finished. Yeah.
Could I just ask a question
Sure,
at this
sure.
point? Because my understanding is that Director Holland came out after the town guys who were dealing with
Yeah.
the down tree spotted that you were doing work on your property. And she took photographs,
Yeah.
and it shows that there was a lot of disturbance in what are wetlands, tracks from quite large equipment, equipment actually on your property. But in addition, I believe that Director Holland issued a verbal cease and desist order and said there should be no further work. But since that time, there clearly has been further work, because when we came and did our site visit, we could see that there had been additional work on the property.
No, she initially she put a note in the tractor as a cease and desist order, and it had been raining, and I actually, it's not like I'm out there every day working on it. I have a real job too, so I didn't see it for a couple of weeks. And in fact, I didn't see it at all until she sent an email or a text, or I think it was an email. And that's the first, I hadn't even been in the tractor that for probably 2 weeks, and finally she sent us an email. We went out and we did stop, and she came out and took a look. When she did come out, pretty much everything had been done, and a lot of it had been seeded. The grading and everything had been done. I didn't do any more grading.
Yeah, hang on. This is Sandy Redden for the
Yeah.
record here. So the pictures are in front of us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you said the note was in the machine. This is
Right.
not a yard machine, by the way.
Right.
That's not a yard machine.
It's a mid-sized tractor.
That's a that's a backhoe.
It's a mid-size. It's considered a mid-sized tractor.
So that's
Just like
not a yard machine, right? So the definition of a yard machine, when you say something like that to the commission, we think of a tractor that you mow with, okay? So don't try and mislead us.
I'm not trying to.
It's not a good path to go down.
No, I'm not.
So
It's just
these pictures were taken.
Right.
And the notice was left, and you didn't do anything after these pictures were taken. You said you did not.
The only thing I did was I got rid of that pile.
Oh, so you did do something. So you were back in the tractor.
We just removed that.
When
pile.
did you,
That
so
was it.
the notice was cease and desist was left.
Right.
And you said you weren't in that tractor for 3 weeks, you just said. Is that what you just said? But during that time, you did do work.
After I got it, after we got the cease and desist, then she came back, then she came out and visited, and she said, this area was fine. You already had that.
So
seeded.
this picture through the wetlands from that
Yes,
lawn tractor, whatever you
Right,
want to call it,
right,
right?
right.
So it didn't look like that when we did the site visit.
No, but I didn't touch any of that. That just all did it from the rain, and I took, just a shovel. I didn't use the tractor in there at all. Nothing.
I find that incredibly hard to believe.
That's the truth. I never went back in there with the tractor, not once in that wetlands, once she was there. In fact, I
So-
parked it.
So all the photos that we're looking at that our professional took, and all this work just took care of itself and went back to the site that we saw from the rain.
I have to see which pictures you're looking at.
Well, I'll bring you the photos. You can have a seat.
So just the dates I have on my field notes, because I always keep records of when these things start occurring. I did the site visit after I had received a complaint from actually our zoning enforcement officer who had been down the block and saw the machine work. He alerted me to it. I went to this site just to try to make contact with the property owner, but didn't know at the time who was doing any work there. Those pictures that Mr. Walker is now reviewing with Sandy, those are the pictures I
Oh.
took on March 11th. So those are from the street. because
This
I
right
don't
here
have
was
access to
spread
the
right
property.
here. All right in here by hand.
Yeah.
These tracks I never touched. I other with a rake. I just kind of put them, filled them back in. I didn't with the tractor. It was all by hand. I didn't rake it way out.
You were told not to do anything, right?
But
But
She,
you put it, you.
but she said you could continue where the seed was and to put down some contractors mix so things didn't erode. And that's what I did. But
So
not-
maybe
but
at this
not
point,
there.
we should ask Ms. Holland to just continue her narrative. Is that correct that you gave?
Let me just back up on the dates
Yeah.
because that's the easiest way for me to reiterate
Sure.
this. So March 11th, obviously, I went to try to make contact whoever was at the property, but I didn't know who it was or anything. So I did see the machine, thinking it was a contractor. I put my business card on the machine. At least I'd get that person's attention, and then proceeded to try to make contact with the actual property owner, but I don't have any contact information at this point. So Mr. Walker doesn't work on the machine every day. I learned later that this is a machine that he purchased maybe, and you were working on the property just as a
Yeah, it's,
trying to be helpful to the property owner.
that's
So
something that stays.
he
on
was
the
the contractor, so I learned that later. So March 20th, Mr. Walker did meet me at the site, and I did meet Jennifer Squirm also at that time at the home. So I went over at that time at the site with Mr. Walker. We walked further around the property so that I could see more clearly some of the activities that were done. Clearly at that time establishing that these things are regulated and do need to go through a proper process for review by in the Wetlands Commission. Again, at that time, we don't have a lot of information, so he needed to flag the wetlands, get a survey, but based on my knowledge of the area, clearly we have wetlands on the property, and he had some activity in wetlands, but we need the backup documentation from the soil scientist to then confirm that. So that was one thing. So at the time I was there, those photos are that's kind of what the conditions were. We did walk to the front area, and he had a rear area that I didn't know how long this was going to take to get resolved. It was March going into April. So there was some minor seeding that he sort of was in between. There was a bit of seeding here and not over there and things like that, but not to fully go basically complete. What now looks complete to me, or more work potentially to take in place. So there's all the emails, and I'm not sure I put, these are in the record. I did sort of try to give you guys the historical background or the whatever, the chronology of events here going back to March. Again, putting in writing to stop work. Need your permits. We did go back and forth with discussions because we were in discussion of trying to work cooperatively together and, give him guidance as to how to get this resolved. So I did say in an email on March 25th, as agreed at our meeting, no further earth disturbing activities will take place until resolved with a permit. Exceptions: hand pick up downed tree debris and removal, remove, I must have meant, seeding of 2 small areas that are ready for seed. So we did have 2 very small areas that had been topsoiled. I believe they were actually out of the wetlands at the front left of the driveway, and I've forgotten where the other ones, the back. Left.
The front left was already seeded. The back had already had some seed, and a lot of that's not even in the wetlands area in the far back.
So he did have 2 areas
Yeah.
that
And on the side,
we were okay with. So.
on the side near the river, you said, maybe throw down some contractor seed to at least so it won't erode, so it wouldn't be bare dirt, which I did.
I don't.
Yeah.
I honestly don't recall, but
Yeah, but I mean, that's all I put down. Those.
I usually
but-
try to.
Yeah, but
Write
you said, well,
it,
maybe, you said
what I
maybe
said.
some contractor seed, just as temporary to keep it, come up fast, so it'll stop it from eroding, and that's all I put down there.
Okay.
The tire tracks, that Mr. Redden was, pointing at, that he said he finds it hard to believe they fixed themselves. They really did. If you go back and look, they're still there. It's all kind of settled in. I mean, we did have a torrential 100-year rainstorm recently, and the entire front yard was awash with rapids. It went all the way down to the wetlands because the pipe in the drainage culvert for the road is not working. It's clogged and it goes to nowhere. So it backs up and the whole thing flooded down down the front of the yard. I have pictures of it and videos of it, and that's probably why all that got smoothed out. But the machine was never used once she said not to use it. It was parked in the back and then eventually put on the trailer and went back to my office in Danbury, which is where it stays.
But it's still, we saw it there last Wednesday. right?
No, it wasn't there.
Machine?
The machine.
Um,
We saw it. You
no.
saw it in the corner, didn't we? We talking about the same thing?
Zero turn tractor lawnmower.
yeah, no, I think not the machine that hit.
Not the
that had
machine
the-
you're talking
yeah,
about. Oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
Okay.
And,
All right.
and there is some rutting. If you walked into the area that Mr. Walker's talking about, you can make out. Now, mind you, this was March. It's
She
now
never-
October.
The machine never, once we got the cease and desist, the machine was never used again. I moved it from where it was parked in the front, so it wouldn't be an eyesore, and I parked it in the back, in the far back where that other lawnmower machine was, and it sat there for a month, and I don't know how long it was, until I could get the trailer and come down and pick it up, and it hasn't been there since, and nothing else has been done, other than just watering and seeding. I reseeded the areas on the in the front left because a couple areas hadn't taken, and we went away. I know as part of the delays, and I know that we tried to get the stuff in earlier. We had gone away for an extended period of time out of the country, so we weren't here during that heat wave.
Let me
Yeah.
ask you, did you ever think about maybe you should talk to the Inland Wetlands Commission and about what you started to do?
No, because initially we didn't think that the floodplain or the 100-year flood line was, I didn't realize that was part of the wetlands. And the wetlands was clearly much farther away from where we were, where I was doing any work. So at the time, I didn't think it was an issue. I didn't realize that the 100-year flood line counted in as wetlands. That was our mistake. And it comes right up next to the house.
So everything that he's relaying tonight, obviously your consultant, whether it's Mr. Simpson or someone else, they will be able to review this. That's what they need to understand. So then they can put together a proper mitigation plan.
Right.
Because I do believe there has been damages to the wetlands with the machine work, with the filling, with the altering of things out there, with the installation of plants that are not properly appropriate for the location on the site. So there will be some mitigation things that will have to
That's
be
fine.
done.
If he wants us to add some areas, I mean, there's plenty of areas on the property that are wetlands that are, they don't have wetlands vegetation. It's been like that for, as long as we know. That we could put stuff back in there. I mean, I put wetlands plants in myself, and I pointed that out to Kathleen. Some red stick, I think they're called red, whatever they are. But I don't know, probably a dozen native Connecticut wetlands plants that were planted when, probably 2 or 3 years ago, just because we wanted to. Some of them have berries, some flowers, just to give it make it a little more interesting. So it's, we're not looking to destroy any wetlands. We like the natural view of it. We like that we don't have to maintain it. But there are some other areas that we could certainly add some wetlands vegetation where there is no vegetation. But we never were going into this looking to hurt the wetlands or do any damage. We just didn't realize that the 100-year floodplain came up so far. In terms of some of the other plants, I did try to keep it in whatever was there. We moved hostas that were already on the property and moved them over to the one bank to try to just to try to keep it, keep from further eroding. And some of the other things we bought were, specifically for wetlands, native wetlands plants. So there may be a couple in there that aren't, but I don't even think they're, there's something that comes back every year. So, but we can change
Do you
those. It's
have
not a big
any
deal.
experience in gardening or anything that do? I may ask, you don't have to tell me what you do.
I'm not a professional gardener, no, or a landscaper or anything like
Are
that.
you a
but-
landscaper? Are you a landscaper?
No,
Okay.
but I've done a lot of yard work.
The qualifications. Is
What?
that- You're looking for, does he have expertise?
Yes,
No,
yes.
I guess he's saying, no, he doesn't have.
Other than just,
Okay.
loving to do it and take care of it. No, I'm not a trained a botanist or
Okay. All right.
or architect or anything else. But
I would, just like to add, it's been a very long time since it became clear that these violations had taken place.
Mhm.
March, and now here we are in the middle, towards the end of October. It is very good news that you are hiring credentialed experts to help you with this project, to identify for us in some detail
right.
what has happened, what was there before, what the harm may have been caused to the wetlands, and what can be done to mitigate it. But I think that this needs to proceed expeditiously at this point.
Yeah, I agree. The problem is when we, first heard from Kathleen, the note was in there for a couple in the truck for a couple weeks. The first person I got was Mary up in, can never pronounce her last name correctly.
Richfield, maybe, or Mary Weiser-Jonig.
Yeah, and I got her right away, and she came down within a week, and we had everything flagged. Then I had to get a surveyor. We used the same one that had pulled up a surveyor who had surveyed it a long time ago, figuring that would be the fastest. And then he was supposed to come out right away, and then he didn't. And then the neighbors were having some stuff done, so they hired him. He was kind of doing both properties at the same time, so it delayed hours. And then when he finally got to it, he did it in bits and pieces, and it took him a couple months to get it. I get they're busy, what have you, but we probably didn't have it until I don't know. There's probably a date on there, but it was definitely late June, maybe July, something like that. And then we went away for 3 weeks. At the end of June, I think it came right before we went away. So we were gone from like the 28th until the 12th, out of the country. And then we got back, and that's when I started to write the report. So it wasn't that we were just trying to, ignore everything and just not do it.
So just the other thing I want to say, I have communicated numerous times that a properly credentialed consultant is going to be required for this application.
Right.
Yet you haven't provided that other than the soil scientist report and the survey. But, I have relayed some feedback from the commission members who also have said the same thing. This isn't
Well,
gonna
the first time we
work.
said we definitely had, you suggested that maybe we get one at one point, and then I didn't think, based on when Mary flagged everything and where everything was, we thought it was probably going to be okay. We were far enough away. Then the floodplain, because we didn't know where the 100-year flood line was, and that was, much closer to the house than we thought. Because until we know where that is, we don't even know where we were in the wetlands, whether we were or we weren't right next to the house. By the time we got that report, we were already getting ready to leave and go away out of the country. So I wrote the report up when we got back. I thought we had enough there, and then Kathleen suggested to us, she sent an email ahead of time before the meeting saying, hey, just heads up, here's some notes and an attachment from you all. And I didn't have that part in the email, and I went to the website in town to look it up, and none of it was there. I guess it hadn't been posted yet. So I kind of thought that the notes that you sent me were the notes. And then when I talked to Mary, she said, oh, there's some other notes now they're popping up, you know, asking for the wetlands consultant or what have you. So that's when I called around and tried to get, you know, whoever we could get.
But this isn't anything new. That's the point I'm making. I've been talking to you about getting this process and what's going to be needed since March, April, May, June. I think I took July off, August and September. So I hope truly that you are on the right path with getting somebody like Keith Simpson or the consultant, because that's,
Right
I
now,
think that is
I
the
spoke to
only
Keith. Yep.
way in which to move forward. And that's actually what the commission is hoping for.
He has, he told me the soonest he could be here would be Wednesday to check back with him this week. I'll check back with him tomorrow morning, and hopefully he'll be out Wednesday, and we can have him write up whatever he thinks needs to be done. And we'll have that in by the 31st.
What were the dates you were out of the country? From when to when? You said you're out for 3 weeks. When?
June
It was like June. Yeah, it was like June 26th or 20 to the 12th, something like that. We were in Africa.
Yeah, I mean, so Kathleen's communicating with you with these requests on first week in June, second week in June. Hand delivered letter and mailed August 14th, email following on August 14th. I mean, there's a lot of communications and there was just nothing done. So,
Well, no, that's not true. She asked about where we were, and I was waiting on the surveyor, and I sent back some emails to her saying that, you know, he told us we'd have it in 2 weeks, and, you know, 2 weeks came and went, and 3 weeks came and went, 4 weeks came and went. I don't know when he actually had it.
He did have a delay with the survey, but the survey was done June 3rd. So,
yeah, as
anyway,
soon as I
We are
got
where
it.
we are at this point, and
We, sorry, this is not, can we qualify and say we're not gonna review this next month if X, Y, and Z are not in, like what?
there's no,
If we're
yeah,
not gonna have anything further to review, then why is it can be on the agenda?
correct. Yeah. I mean, I think at this point you have to keep in very good communication with me every step of the way. I'm hoping that, you know, a consultant stepping in will be the key to moving this forward as what needs to be done. So, but yes, I mean, to your point, I'm not going to waste the commission members' time. We have some very large applications coming in the queue. So you're going to get busy through the end of December, early next year. We got some big items coming in, so they're on the docket. So this is something that has to be addressed as well, but
Let me read this statement here. I just want to make sure this is true.
Mhm.
Applicant is requesting permission to maintain activities completed in and near regulated wetlands. Is that a true statement?
I'm looking to. I'm sorry, what?
Is requesting permission to maintain activities already completed in or near the regulated wetlands. Are you asking for that?
that's what we understood the application.
Asking
to be.
to maintain it or?
No,
Leave it.
not to leave it, just leave it.
Leave it
In
as
other
is.
words, what you've done, you want to maintain, you want to keep it there.
Yeah, I
If
mean-
Keith comes up with a suggestion to change it, is that going to be a problem with you?
I don't think so. I mean,
Okay,
it depends on what
okay.
kind of change it's gonna be. I mean,
He's
we,
got to change it.
Yeah.
So you're going to give him carte blanche authority to suggest changes if need be. Is that correct?
he can suggest changes. Yeah, I mean, it's gotta be within reason. I mean, it's.
Well, no,
if
he's
asking us to rebuild the, you know,
Keith is a reasonable guy.
yeah, I mean, we're not
yeah.
looking to be unreasonable with it
Yeah,
at all.
okay, no. I
So,
don't mean it that way. But you may have done something already that you want to keep, and Keith may say, that's not the way to go. We're going to change that.
we haven't changed anything that was not already existing. So if he wants to change something that's existing, because for whatever reason, he thinks it's gonna be better, we'll hear it out and we'll go from there.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like I've encroached, I didn't take over any wetlands and you want us to, put it back. So if he's wanting us to undo something we did,
What we would
I
ask you
understand
not,
it.
not to fight him, because you hired him, you retained him as an expert. That's why I asked you if you were an expert. And so you got to rely on Keith to, what he tells you to do is the right thing.
Mhm.
Okay, all right. Any other questions, anything? All right,
If you could just stop sharing your computer, because we've got your screen up there right now.
so you, Keith, or you will be in touch with Kathleen. Right, Kathleen? Yep, yeah.
That's usually what
You're-
happens. Yep.
Yeah. And we'll see you back in November. Any other questions? Let me ask you that. No, nothing? Thank you for.
Hopefully have it to
Thank
the
you.
31st.
Okay, just, I don't know if I can bump you out of here. Oh, there you go. You did it. Thank you. Okay,
All right. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Thank you. Yep. Where are we here? I think I need my glasses. Discussion and possible, okay, you have two applications here, administrative actions. You want to,
sure.
anything?
So obviously you
Talk
don't have
about-
anything to vote on this evening, but we'll see how those two other ones come forward and I'll keep you all informed. So two applications came forward to the office. One was for 72 Woods End Road. That is a demolition and new construction of a home at that location. There's a pocket wetlands in the front yard. I've actually met with a new-ish property owner. Well, she's a new property owner there, but she's moving back to town, very lovely family and excited to be on that street. So we're in good communication with those folks. I believe demolition has already begun. The next one is 432 Frogtown Road. This is some reconstruction activities of a home at that location, of which is the main thing is the demolition of a dilapidated patio that's been on this contemporary home for quite a number of years. It's a well-known location and it's right near the river. So they'll be doing a lot of restorative work for that home, which triggered the wetland review.
All right. Other scheduled meetings. Any questions on administrative activities? Scheduled meetings, 2025. You all have a copy of that. We don't need to vote on that or anything, but you have it in front of you. No changes on here, right?
No, I can't think of any. We just are required to put together a schedule, so we'd like to get it out because I already have applications coming in. So getting ahead of it a little bit.
Number 13, training opportunity. November 16th is the Kakiwick conference. It's a good one. It always is. Up in Bristol, Connecticut. Is there anybody want to attend? Sandy? Katie?
Nope, I won't be there.
Priscilla?
Gonna be away.
You gonna be away?
And I'm going to be away too.
Okay.
So we should let Adam know about it.
Oh,
yeah.
they received the same information, so
Yeah, but
hopefully.
sometimes they don't read it, so we should.
Now I'm responsible.
What? No, I know. you're
Okay, I'll
not,
make sure they
but
read
If we want one,
Yeah.
I'll talk to him. I'll talk,
No,
I'll do it.
Oh,
No,
listen.
no, we don't want to do that.
I am going to be attending that one. I offered anyone who wants a lift, they're welcome to ride with me, but I know Saturdays are tough, so I get it.
Yeah,
but Sandy has jumped into the pool, so we will represent New Canaan. And if Adam or the Beths would like to come, that'd be great. So,
What
okay.
about the two new people? Huh?
Yeah, I can reach out to them.
Yeah,
Yeah, so the they're gonna come on board in November.
yeah, yeah.
So maybe it's a little too soon. Wait till next year.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
For you that
that's-
don't
That's asking
know,
them a
there-
lot.
we've added two new people to the commission that'll be on board in November. Okay. Any other thing? Anything else you want to discuss? All right, can I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
And I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.